Robert Vaughn. We're here with Mike Shomo and Verl Majid. And we have, welcome everyone. We're glad that you decided to join us. We have a lot to cover, a lot going on, coronavirus, voting, Supreme Court. I really don't even know where to start, but I guess we'll start with the subject of our show today, which is
But those people who don't deserve that, we should have people in there that won't, give them time. Like, you know, uh, we just had a thing, about a month ago, where the mail lady was dealing drugs on her mail ride.
yeah, yeah,
She got probation. Now, little Jamal down the street, he 18 years old,
uh-huh.
and they give him a felony, for selling a couple of crack rocks. And I'm not saying that I'm not trying to minimize what he did,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but why he got to get 10 years?
Well, I think that's one of the consequences of not voting
Right,
is that you don't get any um, continuity in the way the legal system works. Because the legal system is a whole another ball of wax. The county prosecutor, the judges, the attorneys. So when you don't get involved, and it's not just voting, I think it's getting involved, and getting a seat at the table,
right.
when a lot of these things happen. Burl, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
No,
Nope.
I thought my mic is up. Hello?
turn it up.
Can, okay, I thought I was all the way up. Let me see. Can you hear me now?
Nope.
Uh-oh.
Check the settings. Check the settings.
I'm supposed to, according to this, I'm all the way up. I'm
Okay.
plugged in.
But while Burl works on that, one of the some of the consequences I think of not voting and not being involved. Um, you know, Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away.
Okay.
Now, people say, well, that's a big deal, but it's not such a big deal. Well, it's a huge deal
Huge.
because a lot of law that was settled law, may be revisited. For instance, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, signing a law by President Johnson, the purpose was to overcome legal barriers at the state and local levels that prevented African Americans from exercising their right to vote. And they've been kind of chipping away at that, and if they continue chipping away at it, it's gonna, your vote is not going to count the way that it should. So that's another consequence of not voting. You have Roe versus Wade, about abortion, the
Right.
right to choose. I mean, that they've been after this for a long time. And I guarantee you, if, when they replace her, which they probably will, with a conservative, that'll be one of the first things they go after. You know, so that's another consequence. Yeah. Can't hear, yeah.
Can't hear me?
Yeah. So
Besides,
that's another consequence.
besides the Obamacare.
Oh, that's huge, man. That's huge. Pre-existing conditions.
Right.
If you before Obamacare, if you had a pre-existing condition, you couldn't get insurance.
Right.
I mean, if you had a pre-existing condition, you couldn't get insurance, and then if you did, they'd give you some outrageous premium and say, well, you have a $1 million lifetime benefit. You know, see, Obamacare changed a lot of that, and I think a lot of people that really don't understand Obamacare, you know, are against it because they don't really understand it. I know Jimmy Fallon did a nice little skit on the show one time, and he was walking around
Oh yeah, I saw that when
different cities, LA and Las Vegas, and we were asking people. He said, "What do you like better, the Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act?" And they said, "Well, we like the Affordable Care Act. You know, that Obamacare, man. That's I don't want anybody telling me what I have. You know, what I have to have." He asked somebody else to say, "Do you like? What do you think about Obamacare compared to the Affordable Care Act?" Oh, they need to get rid of Obamacare. I like the Affordable Care Act. You know, well, it's the same thing.
that was the funniest thing. I mean, it was serious. I mean, it was funny, but it was funny because we knew that you know that they were the same thing, but they didn't know.
Right.
I saw that and I was just like, wow, it's funny, but it's sad, you know, because they were just saying because they attached it because it was the Republicans that called it Obamacare. You know, they were the one that nicknamed it Obamacare. And they did that, you know, so people would have a negative feel about it. And that's just exactly what it did.
That's what it did. Yeah. Because people will tell you. I've had people tell me they don't like it. And I say, what is it you don't like about it? Well, I don't like somebody telling me that I have to get insurance. I said, well, it's for the first time you're able to get insurance, and you weren't able to get insurance before because of your pre-existing condition. You know, they say, yeah, well, you know, but I still don't like it. So I think a lot of times, you know, people's perception will make them vote against their best interests. You know, and I think this happens a lot. You know.
You know, with the Obamacare, you know, which brought millions of people, it was like 20 million people got covered that didn't have,
couldn't have it,
right, and the thing is, it wasn't just for African Americans, it was for the whole people, and it was more. It was more Caucasians that benefited from it or had used it than blacks because it's more of them here than us. I think what are we like 30% or lower?
Yeah, but it was you know, it was that whole thing, that anti-Obama feeling.
Right, exactly.
You know, that and people, and I think a lot of people, especially in Kentucky, because Kentucky, when it first started, man, they had a hell of a system. I mean, you could get health care there if you were making less than 30 grand a year or 40 grand a year. You get health, you can get Obamacare for, you know, 40 or 50 bucks a month because it was subsidized. And so I think eventually now a lot of people are realizing that, you know, hey, this is not such a bad thing.
Right.
So,
you know, it was to see, and they tagged it Obamacare, but the actual author of the whole thing was Kennedy. He pushed it for Kennedy.
Yeah, well, it was based on a plan that Mitt Romney had in Massachusetts. And it was really based on Mitt Romney's plan, you know. Yeah. So you know, it just, you know, his was a very popular plan, and everybody liked it, you know. But you know, you call it Obamacare, and all of a sudden nobody likes it. But that's one of the consequences of not voting could be that Obamacare is repealed, and that's going to hurt a lot of people. So.
But that was one of the things that Donald Trump ran on, was that when I get in, we're going to repeal Obamacare. We're going to do this. And that's all he's been talking about, all the stuff that Obama did that he wanted to undo. And I'm saying, you know, when, you know, it was tested in the Supreme Court, it was tested all over. He got figured like this. Obama has a law degree. From a prestigious school.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing. He's no dummy.
So,
Hey,
so
Verl, did you get your volume? Did you get your mic?
Can you hear me now?
no,
No.
I am still trying to.
All right, do you have your mute button on? Maybe I'm not sure.
No.
No. Okay.
probably it's something with the volume because he probably is going to have to go into the settings, or he might have to shut the computer down and start it back up again.
Yeah. I try to reboot it because you should be coming up. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Mike. Other consequences. We talked about Obamacare, Roe versus Wade, the Voting Rights Act. How about Brown versus Board of Education? You know,
So
they would like to get rid of that. This marked the end of separate but equal. Up until 1954, it was felt that schools, we could have separate schools for blacks and whites as long as they were equal. But separate but equal.
that Brown case, that Brown case, wasn't that with the guy who who's going to law school, and they had him in the basement someplace else, and it wasn't equal.
Yeah, that's Brown versus Board of Education. Was they had separate schools,
right?
And obviously the schools that blacks went to were very inferior to the schools that white went to, and they would say, well, if we have it equal, we can have it separate but equal, so we'll make their schools a little better, which never happened. So, desegregation of public schools began then, and there was a lot of resistance to it, which still goes on today, because that's when you saw a lot of private schools really start to grow, because people didn't want to send their kids to, a lot of people didn't want to send their kids to integrated schools.
Let me bring this to you, because see, this is when they talk about the Black Lives Matter, when we're talking about equality, this is almost at a point that you say this is impossible, because just like that, they have reared their children. Our parents, our grandparents have all reared us to love people. They are reared to love their own people and hate everybody else.
Well, now I wouldn't, but see, I wouldn't put everybody in the same basket when you say they. But a lot of people have.
You can call it what you want, but I'm gonna tell you something. I've been in white households. I've been there. I've talked to people that say, "Wow." I've worked with people who say, "Oh, you black people are really nice," because I was always told that y'all were nasty, dirty. We couldn't trust you.
Oh yeah, a lot of them do raise their fame, but then you have a lot of them like
more so than just a few.
But look at the people that we grew up with and went to school with.
Okay.
Now, would you say they fall into that category?
Some of them.
But most of them don't. I would probably say that most of them probably don't.
But you got to remember this too. Many of them were Jewish. They almost went through the same person.
So they went through the same
persecution.
Yeah.
And you got to figure like this: the people there were more affluent than the average, Caucasian.
This is true.
They were in an affluent, Shaker Heights, it was affluent. You had the Kirschenbaums, the Messenbaum, the Reenies, all the rich people live right across the street from Shaker Heights High School.
Yeah.
So let me hear what you got to say now.
Well, you know what? I think
there was a different class.
It's I'll tell you one thing I've noticed, and it has to do with a lot about not just where you were raised, but how you were raised.
Right.
And I'll give you an example. Now I know Ohio is a pretty racist state. I'll be honest with you. Right. Indiana, during the 20s and 30s, you had more Klansmen in Indiana than you did in Mississippi.
If you remember,
Cincinnati, go ahead.
Cincinnati was where the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan lived.
Yeah.
I just left Cincinnati coming here, but let me tell you, it's still a lot of racism there.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, but my point is this: is that now have felt more comfortable in parts of Tennessee, Kentucky, down south than I do in Ohio. And I tell you another place I consider pretty racist once you get outside the city is Michigan. You know what I'm saying? And I used to, when I went to high school, I went to a military school in Indiana. And I said for about 6 months, I got how? Yeah.
Right.
I used to fight, get in a fight every day so somebody would call me the N-word. I mean, every day. And after about 6 months, I learned how to fight pretty good. So they stopped calling me that. But I mean, it's like every day, you know. and I didn't experience that in Ohio, and I didn't experience it when I was, when I was in the South, but here again, I experienced it in Indiana, but I guess my point is this, is that a lot of people who are used to living around people of different cultures tend not to be as bigoted as people that don't, because a lot of the younger people now are used to being around people of different cultures.
Yeah, the younger people, because
they don't carry that, they don't carry that like a lot of their parents do.
Right. But I'm just saying, and I just left last year Buffalo, New York, and it was so racist there. I just said I ain't never coming back here. My job transferred me there, and I was just like, no, it was just, like, hey, stay in your place. Now, and the whole thing, this is the thing about the basis of all this stuff, prejudice and discrimination is all that, is because of obvious differences. Obvious differences.
Well, I think
it's obvious that I'm black. It's obvious. Now, if a Caucasian person look at me and say he black, so if I don't like black people, I get it. It's obvious if a guy's carrying a purse, got earrings and makeup and stuff, that he's gay. So then therefore, I can say, I mean, don't get me wrong, everybody doesn't dress like that. Every gay man doesn't look gay. But the ones that are discriminated against, they look or act gay or have confessed. And I'm just saying, it's a difference. It's obvious differences. That's what perpetrates or perpetuates the discrimination and the prejudice.
Well, I think a lot of, but I think prejudice is something that's learned. It's not nothing that you're born with. It's what you learn, and in some households, they don't teach their kids to hate people. Not everybody teaches their kids to hate people and to be prejudiced. And that goes for all races. But in some they do, but in some they don't. I think one of the
but I bet you it's more them than us, because we don't preach hate now, because most of our families were brought up in religion and they teach it and turn the other cheek and all this stuff, and the thing is that that's all fine, but we're faced with an enemy that when they become enemies, that it's just a bad situation. When the Panthers, they talk about the Black Panthers and stuff, but if you remember, the Black Panthers were started because the Oakland police was acting up, because they were killing people. They're doing the same thing they're doing now. Because when they were at Kent State, training the Oakland police. When Timmy Moore and all them guys, they took over the administration building at Kent State University, I think like 1968 or 1969, because they were protesting that the Oakland police were being trained on the Kent State campus.
I think a lot of it too, a lot of
you ready, bro?
Issues.
Can you guys hear me?
No.
Can't hear me now?
Sound like you're talking in a fishbowl.
Yeah.
Can you hear anything?
Yeah, we can hear something.
Just a little. Yeah, just a little. Yeah.
Should I talk louder? Let me see.
Hey, that's it.
Yeah, that's better.
Go all the way up.
That's better. Yeah. That's a little better. Yeah.
Okay, I'm projecting a little bit more.
Just come up a little more and talk.
Yeah.
Okay. How about now?
Right.
Yeah. That's
right
better.
there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, while you were gone, man, Mike was talking about you like a dog, man. But you can watch the tape, you know.
Oh, at least he keeps it on point then.
You know, I know more about you than anybody.
Hey, but you know, back to our subject. I think a lot of there's a big cost to not being involved, to
Yeah.
not voting, to not filling out your census form, and you know, it people less than I think when they have a large voter turnout, it's like less than 50% of people that vote. I mean, that's really ridiculous, man.
Let me
I know
say,
in Australia, if you don't vote, you can be arrested or you can be fined. Everybody has to vote, and if you don't vote, you have to be in a hospital. You have to have a pretty good excuse for not voting.
But
And,
you know
and I,
what?
mhm,
You know what, Robert? I think people have become kind of apathetic
mhm,
simply because we don't we go through this every election cycle. You
mhm.
see the voter suppression, closing down voting stations. I mean, how many times do we got to repeat this? We got to stay involved year round, even beyond the vote. But you're right; it does start with the vote.
But you know what? And to that I answer because I think everybody gets a little perturbed and it's like, okay, we got to go through this again. But you know, John Lewis said, well, "What do? You don't stop fighting and quit. You keep fight the good fight." You know what I'm
I
saying?
agree.
So
I
you
agree.
have to, if you may have to go through it, we
right.
probably came a long way from when he first started doing things to where we are now, and we still realize we have a ways to go. And a lot of it, I'll be honest with you, a lot of it, um, I hate to blame it on capitalism, but a lot of it has to do with money.
Right.
Well, there's a lot of big contractors.
Because people with a lot of money really, kind of get along with other people with a lot of money.
You know
And
that?
I'm not saying that there's a total lack of prejudice, but
It's
people,
it's a fraternity. It's a
it's a
fraternity.
fraternity. I mean, if you have $1 billion, I'm
Yeah.
sure there are probably some billionaires that don't like, Michael Jordan or Oprah, and but if you're in a billionaire club, they probably accept you a little more than they would if you weren't in the billionaire club. So I think a lot of it's economic. A lot of it has to do with jobs and opportunity. You
Oh,
know,
sure.
because people feel like hey, they're trying to take our jobs. That's what they always blame Mexicans, for that come to this country. So they're trying to take our jobs. And a lot of it is based on that. It's not that you can really like some people may think other people are inferior, but I mean, a lot of it is economic because people that are in physicians or that have secure jobs and make a lot of money, they don't tend to worry about a lot of those things, I think.
Right.
Let me throw some figures at you.
Mm-hmm.
In 2016, there were 200,000 registered voters. 200 million registered voters on that. Okay.
Okay.
Only 138 million actually voted.
Mm-hmm.
That was 62 million that didn't vote.
And
And that breaks down to 46.9 of the registered voters did not vote.
46.5, almost 50%. And
Almost.
and and I'd be willing to bet that the 47% that didn't vote are the ones doing most of the complaining.
You better believe it.
But Robert, hold it, and Mike, in fairness to them, when we have long lines and we got old people waiting to vote, they got to stand there for 6 to 8 hours in the rain or cold. Does that make any kind of sense? So if we're not addressing that, some of these people can go home. And not because they
Well,
don't
you
want
know
to
what? If
participate.
you go home, then you lose.
Yeah,
What you
but
have
I'm
to
just
do,
saying,
you have to
you
figure
got
out. Yeah.
you got an 80-year-old man there and he's got arthritis in his leg.
Mhm.
He
I
can't
think
stand up. Why don't we address that? Why don't we make sure that all these voting locations are open and operating right?
But see, here again, that all comes back to voting. So you can have a representative that
Right.
will see to it that happens.
right.
And
And you have see in
we got to hold
Ohio,
their feet to the fire too.
yeah, but in Ohio, we have a lot of ways to vote. Just like for instance, for now, you can vote by mail now. You can request a mail-in ballot and you can vote
Right.
by mail now.
Mm-hmm. Right.
October 6th, a month before the election, you can go to the Board of Elections, you can vote in person. and it's usually not that crowded there. You know, that's how we usually vote. We
Yeah,
usually go like the first week. And even when Obama was running, it wasn't really that crowded. We may have waited 10, 15 minutes. Or you can wait till election day and vote. But see, there's a lot of options in Ohio. I mean, we have options to vote, you know, and I think the 80-year-old man with arthritis, maybe, you know, as a civic duty, maybe someone should tell him how to get a ballot. You know what I'm saying? How to get a mail-in ballot and perhaps drop it off for him. You know, this is the kind of thing we'll have to do. You know, and I understand, you know, nobody wants to wait in line.
Right.
But, you know, in Ohio, I don't think you really have to wait in line. You have other options. But now if you wait to the last minute and say, oh, God, I forgot to vote, you know, and I've done that before, and I think we all have. But you know how important this election is.
Sure.
And, you know, if you haven't, you know, if you haven't gotten your absentee ballot yet, you know, you probably should hurry up and do it, you know. So, you know. But
now, do you remember that election? I'm trying to for president, and our Secretary of State, I think it was Ken Blackwell, he stopped counting the votes. You remember that? I think it was. I'm trying to remember who was.
Yeah, Blackwell.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Blackwell. But trying to remember who was running for president then.
Oh, that Blackwell was mixed up in so much stuff, man. He.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, it was a whole slew of votes. He just said you don't need to continue counting. I'm trying to remember who the guy was.
Well, you know what? And the reason Blackwell got elected to Secretary of State is because 50% of people didn't vote.
Yeah.
And if 10% of those people had voted, he never would have got elected. So see, here again, you know, vote. I remember in South Africa, I read a story when when Nelson Mandela came out and took over and they opened up the voting for people to vote. There were people, man, that walked for 5 days on foot,
right,
and waited in line for 2 days to vote.
It's amazing.
And here we can't request a ballot, an absentee ballot, and send it in.
Yeah, we really do.
We stand in line for 2 hours, and we're like, oh my God, this is awful. But see, you don't have to stand in line. You can vote early. You can get an absentee ballot. You can go down to the Board of Elections and vote early. You know, so people have given their lives for the right to vote.
Well, let me tell you
but I tell you what, if you don't vote, then we may get to see what fascism really looks like. You know, we're trying to hang on to the democracy now, you know, and you know, one person, one vote. But if is this a serious election? You can't take things for granted.
Hey, let me say, my administrative assistant just told me that she's voting by mail and says that there's another way you can, you know, besides the mail, they have curbside voting for people who are, you know, who are older and in wheelchairs or don't feel like, you know, coming in with the COVID and stuff. She just told me that just now because she's working the polls herself. And just told me.
They'll also have drop boxes at the libraries. If you're not comfortable mailing in your vote, they'll be staffed by the Board of Election employees at certain days and times where you can take your ballot and drop it off at the county libraries. Right. So that's another way. So we have a lot of options for voting.
There's no reason not to vote.
No reason not to vote, you know? Yeah, no reason not to vote. And I think people that don't vote is just an excuse. And, you know, if you don't vote, then, you know, things that happen like Blackwell, that's what happens. That's what can happen, you know? Yeah.
Well, they think they're disenfranchised from the system and stuff. And, you know, oh, well, my vote don't count. It's like your vote do count, you know?
Every vote counts,
You know, you got to. And the thing is that, you know, people have died and were harassed and
for the right to vote. Yeah.
Our relatives paid the ultimate price. Yeah, for sure.
And you just shrug it off like, oh no, I ain't voting, man. I ain't got any. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. But you gotta, and people have to understand that too. You have to, whatever you need to do to vote, that's what you need to do.
And they need.
And if you want to wait till the last minute and stand in line and take a chance, then that's up to you. But you don't have to do that. Yeah.
But
Right.
what they need to do is they need to do it like Scrooge. They need to have the voters of the past come and scare them at night, tell them to vote. You know,
That would be like that would make a good commercial.
these,
That would make a PSA.
these people that talk about they don't need to vote and stuff, have some people who were murdered and stuff come and say, I died for you to get the right to vote.
Yeah, vote. Yeah.
To turn this thing around. That's a good point. Give me 1 second.
12 o'clock at night. You know?
Yeah, that's true, man. Yeah, yeah.
You know,
So,
I'm just saying because you know what else can you do? I guess it said somebody said, hey, look, why don't everybody pass out? Why don't the government pass out the stimulus checks after they vote? Or they be down there. They be down there.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you know what? You shouldn't. The economy is in a bad way. The only reason the stock market is still doing good is because the money that was given to the large companies
Right, to get them out
wasn't given to employees. It was mostly used for stock buybacks. And it was invested in the market. That's just like if you can borrow money, if you can get a PPP loan, or you can go and issue some corporate bonds, and you know the government charges you 0.05% for the money, and you know you can take that same money and put it in the stock market and get 10 or 15%. You know, I mean, it's a no-brainer. So you take, like, and that's why the stock market is still doing good. You know, yeah, that's why the stock market is still doing good, because a lot of the PPP money and a lot of those trillions of dollars went right back into the market to keep.
Do you think the market's looking for a crash again? Anytime soon?
A correction, yeah, it always does, man. It always does. And I just hope the next time it crashes, I have sense enough to buy something like Amazon where I could double my money in 2 months or 3.
I'm gonna buy low.
Hillary like
that, like 30 cents on it.
Didn't Hillary one time have $1,000 and make it $1 million? Something like that.
I read an article the other day that said that Bezos, with his employees, every last one of his employees, that he can give them $103,000 a piece. Every last person that works for him, and he still be rich.
But you know what? If he did, then they wouldn't work.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But see, you know, and I had a conversation with a gentleman the other day, and you know, he was saying, he said, well, you know, if we had a redistribution of wealth, you know, with all, because 10% of the people, 1% of people own half of all the stocks.
Right.
10% of people own about 89% of all the stocks, which is all the value of companies and corporations. He said, well, if we could, you know, we could distribute the money and everybody could have an income, you know, of $100,000 a year. And I said, but you know what the problem with that is? He said, what? I said,
go up.
5 years, the same people would have the money again, because the same people that spend it and throw it away would do the same thing.
They just have
same people that are entrepreneurial and figure out a way to sell something would have money again. I say, so
yeah, because they'd be like giving the alcoholic more to drink.
Yeah, you know. But you know, I think the stock market is probably due for another correction or a crash, because you know, it's with capitalism it's a system that has to be propped up by the government. And if you notice, since the 2000s, every few years, every 5, 6, or 7 years, the government has to throw money. You know, you had the .com bust of 2000. You know, the government had to put in billions, hundreds of billions of dollars. You know, in 2008, you had the real estate crisis.
Real estate, right. Yeah.
Where the government had to put in $800 billion like two separate times.
You remember the banking crisis? Nobody went to jail behind that, even though some things were done properly.
Oh, you mean with Enron? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had that. You had the bank, well, what they call it the banking crisis, but I don't know if it was really, it was just, you know, it was a house of cards, man. Anytime you have speculation and gambling, you know, you have a house of cards and they, you know, they lend a lot of money and the government bought a lot of bonds that were, you know, junk bonds, you know. Yeah, you know, with junk bonds.
It was really a pyramid scheme. That's what it was.
Yeah, well, it was really a pyramid scheme. And then now, you know, in 2020, you have the Corona crash, you know, the Corona crash. But see, it's not so much the coronavirus or the pyramid scheme. It's the whole system, man.
Capitalism.
The way the system is set up is the wealth gets more and more concentrated at the top. There has to be an underclass for everybody to make money off of. But when you get rid of the middle class, there's nobody to buy the products that the upper class produces. Because the people making $7.25 an hour are not buying new automobiles and pickup trucks.
No.
They're trying to survive, yeah.
Yeah, and most people now are not buying them anyway. They're leasing them.
Right.
You know, yeah, because in 1970, when Nixon took us off the gold standard, people were like, well, how are we going to keep the economy going? You know, say, well, credit, we'll just give everybody credit. And that's when you first started to see credit cards. Because you guys remember, before 70, there was like, what? Diners Club and American.
Diners Club was it, yeah.
And those were really not credit cards. Those were like,
because you have to pay
roller cards.
You have to pay your whole bill.
Yeah,
they couldn't carry the balance.
And then you had Shoppers Charge and American Bank Card, Bank America Card,
American Express, yeah.
American Express. Then you start seeing credit, because before that time, people wanted to buy something. I mean, you could get credit. It was up to the banker if he wanted to give you credit.
The institution, because a lot of people had the Sears revolving charge. You could stuff the Sears on credit. For about like 17, 18%. But now this stuff is 23, 27, 30%.
Yeah. But see, credit in the 70s kind of kept the economy going. Because the thing about capitalism, the government always has to intervene and inject money for it to work. And you always have to have an underclass. In every country, you have to have an underclass of people for the middle class and upper class to make money on.
Wasn't it the Swedish the Norwegian? Wasn't it the Norwegian that started the capitalism system?
I think it was the
Norwegians.
Well, it's actually been before capitalism, it was called mercantilism. And what mercantilism was you tried to always have a positive trade balance. That's like if I traded with Verl, I'd always make sure that Verl owed me more than I owed him. And that's kind of where capitalism, started.
Yeah,
and
didn't it go back to the Babylonians? I mean, they started, I think, promissory notes, things like that.
Well,
they were working on a barter system and stuff.
Yeah.
No. They actually introduced it. I believe I had read. They started promissory notes and things like that.
Yeah. But where modern day capitalism started was with the monetization of labor, which started with slavery. And I don't mean black slavery. I mean long before blacks were enslaved in Africa, the monetization of labor. And somebody said, well, you know what? I can, with feudalism, you worked on the land that you had the lords and you had the serfs. There was no middle class.
Right, the serfs.
You were royalty or you weren't, period. And the serfs worked on the land. They were kind of like sharecroppers. And then the Lord would say, well, you got 100 bushels. He said, I want 68 of them. And then you can have the rest and you can sell it and you can eat. Well, they would give you enough for you to get by. But see, that was the first, what you call monetization of labor. And
hey, speaking of that, Robert, had either you or Mike heard of the fact that blacks and slavery were the first thing traded on the stock market? Had either of you heard that?
Stock exchange? Oh, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean,
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah. The Dutch East India Company slavery was like, that wasn't all they did. They made a lot of money with slavery, but they were like the first real capitalists in the monetization of labor. And
the East India Trading Company out of England, weren't they doing drugs and opium, the opium thing?
They were like they were doing everything.
Everything.
Opium, drugs, slaves,
spices.
Yeah, they were doing everything, man. They were, they were landowners, so they had sharecroppers, and they had a lot of European slaves too. They traded. Matter of fact, they took Indians from this country, Native Americans. I'm sorry, they took Native Americans from this country and took them to Europe and sold them as slaves. So they just didn't bring blacks here, but they
But
also
Europeans, you know, when they enslaved their own, it was just called indentured servants.
indentured servants. Yeah. But yeah, yeah. But back to the subject, consequences of not being involved. Um, you know, we have all these laws that are probably, a lot of them are probably going to get struck down because Mitch McConnell, they will take a vote on a new Supreme Court justice. It will be a conservative, and they were going to start attacking these laws.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, that's the thing about.
I don't see any way around it. Maybe you guys do. But
no, I agree with you. We got to vote because even the people who we elect, they appoint quite a few people to important positions. You know.
Yeah.
I know a lot of times it's judges and things, and that can make a difference. You know, in the outcome of a case or situation. You know.
Yeah,
that impacts. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to say it makes a huge difference. You know, in the judges, and I mean, you have people now that are, you know, it's just like the CDC, Center for Disease Control. You know, they're putting out reports now based on what Trump wants to hear. I mean, you know, and when I mean, that's pretty ridiculous, man. It sounds ridiculous, but when
they want to satisfy him, they want to
when you get people elected to office that really are not competent to do the job, that's what you get, man. Right. And then they put their other buddies, you know, that's just like if Mike Shomo some kind of way, you know, ended up heading up, you know, Ford Motor Company. And he said, okay, Verl and Bob, I'm going to put you in charge of North America and put you in charge of Europe. Now, I'm quite sure we'd probably take the job and the money, but we wouldn't know what the hell we were doing, you know.
Right.
And that's kind of like what you have now. You know, and when you don't get involved in the process, you know, this is what happens. There's a lot of consequences. I mean, you know, with not just food, you know, there's for instance, Congresswoman Marsha Fudge works a lot on getting money in that budget for food stamp. There's a lot of people that can't afford to eat.
That's crazy. Or the choice between eating and medical care.
Yeah, you can tell by the way Verl and I look. We aren't one of them, you know, because we get our fair share. But
well, too many carbs, but I'm cutting down.
I know. But you know, there's a lot of people. Yeah, there's a lot of people, man, that you know, and that's pretty. When you don't have enough to eat, then you kind of see the world a little different.
Well, you know, that's why, you know, like during the pandemic and everything, that they were still giving school lunches if you want to drive by, get school lunches and stuff, because, you know, many people who eat every day don't realize there are many people that don't eat every day.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
That their only meal, sometimes breakfast and lunch at school is the only meals they have, because their parents have, you know, substance problems, you know, domestic violence, and you know, and some of these people are just so young that they don't even know what to do or how to do it. They just got children and really don't know what to do with them.
Yeah, they had kids. That's kids having kids, man.
Yeah, baby.
And then the kids, like you say, who don't have any other way to eat, they're more likely to go out there and get involved in something illegal just in the name of survival, you know.
Yeah.
Remember, we had an incident about, it must have been about six, might have been a year ago, but a boy walked into the store and he stole something from, you know, from a Eastern descent guy, and the boy was shot and killed for stealing. The boy was just hungry, you know. The boy was just hungry. Then the guy, he ends up, you know, going, leaving the country and stuff. That we can't prosecute him. Well, you know, he's an African American kid, you know. So he figured, well, hey, you know, he was stealing from these people. Okay, you know, over in their country, you know, they say you steal from them, they cut your hand off, you do this and stuff. It's a little. We had a guy. Remember Fulton Fish Market? Fulton
I remember.
Mendici. Yeah, Mendici. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, but they had one down on Woodland.
Yeah.
And the guy stole a box of shrimp. And this was the first time I ever heard of an AK-47. The guy was running down the street and they blasted him with the AK-47 and killed him over a box of shrimp.
I remember that, the place across from the projects down there. Yeah.
Right. And I'm just saying, you know, is the value of life. I mean, you know, I think if he stole a box of shrimp or something like that, he's probably hungry. You
But
know,
see
Right.
what eventually
hey man, here
happens.
goes some shrimp sauce to go with it.
Yeah, but see what eventually happens is that you know, an if you create an underclass
Right,
Right. That's it.
and
right.
can't
That's it.
eat,
Yeah,
they're not going to starve. You look at these other countries. You know, if you look at, you know, look at Ecuador and some of these countries in Mexico, the rich people have to live behind 15-foot iron gates, you know, with dogs and armed guards, and they can't go out and live their life. They can't just like go out to the mall, because what happens if you have people in any country, and it doesn't have anything to do with race, when you have people that are starving, they're not going to want to starve, and eventually, you know, they're going to figure out, well, we're going to do what we have to do to eat,
right.
especially when you got, you like you say, you got the kids starving, and then you have, you know, Jeff Bezos, who made $82 billion in the last 4 months. Now you can say, you know, well, I'm a free market capitalist or blah blah blah. You can say whatever you want, but if there are people starving and one person makes that much money, then it's the system. It's not the people. It's the system that's wrong.
No kind of balance.
Yeah,
But let me tell you
and
what's happened.
that has to be addressed. Yeah,
But
it has to be addressed. Yeah,
well, see, the thing is our present economic situation has developed a subclass of people because what has happened is that the college graduates are getting the jobs that the high school graduates are getting. The high school graduates are getting the jobs that those guys is dropping out getting. Now those people that drop out, they become part of the underclass people because they're just out there just spending and doing whatever they can to survive, whether it's eating or whatever it is, housing or anything. You know, you got people living in abandoned houses and abandoned buildings and stuff.
yeah,
And
yeah.
just like, you know,
Hey, but you know what? Like we were talking about those blacks getting shot for just something simple as stealing. One of the things about that is the fact that the way black life is so devalued. I don't know
right.
if you guys remember back in, I think it was '91 or something like that. There was a black girl who in Los Angeles. Her name was Latasha Harlins. She's 15 years old, and she was fatally shot by this Korean shop owner, a woman named Soon Ja Do, 51 years old. The lady thought she was stealing, she really wasn't.
Oh yeah, she
She
wasn't.
walked out, the woman shot her in the back of the head. And
Yeah,
that was a Korean woman was acquitted. The girl had done nothing. She just assumed she was stealing. Shot her in the back of the head. But what was interesting about that, somebody I know in LA told me that the Korean community rallied together and had her $1 million defense fund in 24 hours. As if to say Korean defense matters, but black lives don't. But this has been going on a long time. So the perception of black people, the way we're looked down upon, so many things have got to change. But like you say, what you said, we got to really start with economics because we can't have community economic independence without an economic base.
Yeah, yeah.
just stay up there, bro. Stay up.
Yeah.
You keep going back and forth. You be
But
in
you
and
know,
out.
I was talking, I was in and
in a
out.
way, yeah. And see, these are all
But
consequences of
yeah,
not being involved and not
right,
voting.
In the process.
exactly.
Because if you don't vote, you don't have power. If you don't have your people in there, you don't have power.
What the
Right.
lady say? You
See,
got people making decisions for you that that's not in your best
in your
interest.
best interest, yeah. And see, this is why, the capitalistic system, capitalism, when you look at economic systems, they're not just systems about money, but they're also political systems. You
Right.
know,
They the keepers. They
because
the keepers.
capitalism, especially with the way money is so rampant in politics now, you can, I was used to work on a lot of elections. I remember I was working on a congressional campaign, and I said, man, there's no way we're going to win this, blah, blah, blah. And the campaign director looked at me and said, Robert, says, you buy elections, man. He said, you get me enough money, I'll get you elected to Congress, and
Right.
and that's true to a great extent. You buy elections, and if you have a lot of money, and that's why a guy that owns Amazon could make $50 billion in a year and not pay any tax.
That's crazy too.
Yeah, that's
Hey,
crazy.
Have either of you guys, you're familiar with Stephen A. Smith, right? The commentator, the sports guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my nephew. I'm just kidding.
He did a piece recently. He was saying black people should all vote Republican in one election simply because he feels the Democrats take us for granted.
Mm-hmm.
And since the Republicans can't depend on us, they try to run anything on us, you know. So he's saying that we should all vote Republican in one election. What do you guys think about that?
Hold on
think
for a
he should
second.
stick to sports.
Stephen A. Smith net worth. Let me see how much money he got, first of all.
There you go. Back to economics. Yeah.
Let me see.
About 20 million.
Yeah, he got about 15. Yeah, about 18 million in the bank. So see, it's easy for him to say stupid stuff
Right.
like that.
Right.
That's just like Ice Cube. Well, Joe Biden doesn't do this, I'm gonna hold a vote. Whose vote you gonna hold? Because you probably don't even vote anyway. You know what I'm saying? But to say stupid stuff like that, and then there's people that believe it. So anytime somebody that's sitting on $100 million says something about holding a vote and says something stupid, a lot of things that happen don't really affect them.
Right.
That's,
you know what I'm saying?
True, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of when they say stupid stuff like that, who was that? Diddy said something like that. Well, if you don't tell us what you're gonna do, I'm gonna hold the vote hostage. You're not gonna hold the vote hostage. You're just gonna, you know,
that's the other thing. You know, we got too many entertainers and athletes kind of trying to set policy. You know.
Yeah, and because you can rap or because you can dunk a basketball, doesn't mean you understand economics or politics. Or because you can preach, you know, and they try to assign leaders, the media tries to assign leaders to black people, entertainers, athletes, and preachers. And those are probably the three people that know the least about economics and politics. Right. You know, assign a leader like Michelle Obama or
there you go.
Or a college professor, you know, Eddie Glaude or something. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I think a lot of times we tend to accept that when we have to kind of, you know, say, you know, hey, look, just, you know, you're a good rapper, but why don't you stay out of politics? You know what I'm saying? That's like Jay-Z cut a deal with the NFL. Jay-Z, he cut a deal with the NFL. I said, so what's the deal? Well, I'll get to say who performs at the Super Bowl. Well, guess who performs at the Super Bowl? Him and Beyonce. You know what I'm saying? So, you know.
Self-preservation is the first law of survival.
Right. It is. So I think, you know, you have to, you got to stay involved. Anybody that tells you not to vote or to hold a vote hostage is not on your side. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, they're not on your side. And anybody that tells you to vote Republican is probably been smoking too much weed. You know, or drinking, because I don't think alcohol does that too. I think you got to have some of this high power marijuana they got now.
Think about Candace Owens?
Candace Owens?
Yeah.
Well, you know, people do a lot of things for money.
Mm-hmm.
People do a lot of things for chicken change, what they think is money. To a billionaire,
yeah.
Candace Owens, maybe she got $1 million. Maybe she don't even have that much. Maybe she makes $200 or $300 a year. People will sell their mother. Some people will sell their mother for money.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't want to put any name on it, but I think, you know, the name I would probably use. But, you know, if you sell out your soul, if you sell your soul, you know what I'm saying, for money.
They say, what you got left, bro?
What you got left. You know what I'm saying? And you have a lot of people like that. I mean, you got people that'll support any position, man. David Duke had Medgar Evers' brother campaigning for him.
Really?
Yeah. He didn't have any money, and David Duke gave him all the liquor he could drink and gave him some money. Like, yeah, man,
wow.
You my man, you know. But I think you have people that will do anything for money. And you have to, I mean, money is a necessity and everybody likes to have a lot of money, but you can't compromise your values all the time. You have to at some point say, hey, I'll do this or I won't do that. Like I know a guy, this is kind of weird off the subject, but I'll just tell you what people will do for money. I was at a party once and this guy said, he said, I want all the guys to come here. And he said, well, what's up? He said, would you sleep with Michael Jackson for $100,000? And everybody was like, man, I thought you had something to say. Okay, would you sleep with him for $5 million?
He said, give me
It got a little quieter. I said, okay, if you
10 million.
knew you could get $100 million, would you sleep with him? And guess what happened?
They said, yeah.
Yeah, 3 or 4 people said, yeah, I probably would, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, that just goes to show you, and that was just a hypothetical experiment, but that just goes to show you, man, that people will do a lot of things for money. You know, Candace Owens wouldn't be doing that if she didn't make money.
They figured they could just wash that off. Yeah, but everybody gonna know what you did.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm just saying that people,
you probably would do it for $10. You just
yeah, people, you know, you gotta, you know, like you say, you sell, once you sell your soul, man, that's all you got, you know, and that's why it's so important to be involved in the vote, to fill out your census form, and to get involved in the community. I mean, I know we've all been involved in the community and done things to make our community better.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
and I think people have to really kind of get back to doing that, man. You know,
because you know, I was in Operation Breadbasket just like
I
you.
remember that. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
I mean, you know, we boycotted the store because they were selling us. They were selling in the black community rotten meat, the stuff that didn't sell out in Beechwood, Pepper Pike. They brought that stuff down to the stores in the hood, and you know we got because Jesse Jackson, you know, came in. We had the Operation Breadbasket. We had other things. We all, you know, and this is the thing. Every law, every liberty that we have gotten by protest, boycott, you know, demonstration,
Voting,
I mean, voting,
community involvement. Voting is nothing but community involvement.
Nothing. What LeBron say? Nothing is given.
Right.
Nothing is given.
Right.
You know, you have to take it.
You have to, and you got to be involved in the process. You know,
who's the army? The voters. You got an army. That's your voters.
That's right.
You know, you say, hey, okay,
yeah, and politics determines who gets what, how, where, when. And if you don't vote, if you don't have a seat at the table, you know, I think me and Verl probably take your share, but you know, if you want to vote,
we know
I'm going to be. I promise, I'm gonna be at the table.
I hear you. Yeah.
You know, like Malcolm said, you know,
if there's not a chair for me, I'm standing on the table. I'm standing on the table.
Yeah.
You're too big to get down. But let's think about what Malcolm said. He said the ballot or the bullet. So if we don't get involved in this,
girl, be still.
This kind of way.
Come on up.
Then what's behind that?
Now he's got an issue with his, I don't know, with his volume because we
but see, when he come up this far, you can hear him good, but he keeps bouncing back and forth.
I'm on top of the mic. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, stay there.
Okay.
You know, but
you got good stuff to say. We want to hear you.
Okay.
But I think I would challenge everybody to, you know, think about how you can be involved. You know, this is an important, very important election. Think about, you know, and what I challenge myself to do is try to get 5 people that I know that never vote.
Right.
Take them to the polls and make sure they vote. So I have a list of 5 names. 2 of them have already voted by, absentee ballot. And I got 3 more. And I said, well, if I can get 5 people that never voted to vote, and then we collectively can use this platform to help get people involved, you know, maybe that could make a difference, a small difference.
We're gonna come back and do a roll call.
Yeah, we could do that. I mean, we could
do that. We could do that.
We should. You have to get people that don't normally vote to go vote.
You could have like a challenge. You gotta have all these challenges, the ice challenge. You know how they have all these different challenges, the ice bucket challenge, all these other ones. Do it like a 5-person to the polls challenge.
Or 3, if you can even do 3. I mean, let's do a 3-person challenge.
There we go.
Everybody can't get 3 people to vote that never vote. And you know, I'm sure everybody has 3 people in their family that probably don't vote.
Right.
And some of them will tell you they do, and they really don't. You know they don't. They know they don't. So, you know, I mean, yeah, I think that's like a challenge, man. I think we need to come up with something like that.
That sounds good. That sounds good.
Because this is this may be the election of all elections, you know, and
It has to be. It has to be
has to be,
because
yeah.
the and I want to tell you, you know, and like I said, we go back a long time. We just seen many presidents, but this is the worst time we've ever seen. This is the worst time we've ever seen. I mean, you know, even with Nixon, if it hadn't have been for the Vietnam War and Watergate, Nixon probably would have gone down as one of the greatest presidents ever because he put a lot of stuff in, you know, he was the one that signed the Minority Business Act in there where, you know, where,
he also had wage and price controls to prevent inflation from getting out of control. But see, Nixon was a smart guy. He just was just a crook, you know what I'm saying?
Right. He opened up communication with China as well.
Yeah, he sure did. Yeah.
I'm saying with
Well,
in fact, you know, he was the one that put the national defense student loans and stuff. Because, you know, when we were coming, everybody was in school. If you didn't want to, you know,
if you wanted to go, there was money. Yeah. Well, that about does it for today. But I just want to close by saying, you know, vote. Make sure you vote, and make sure you can take 3 people. Make it a point to take 3 people that you know don't normally vote, and see if you can get them to vote. Yeah. I mean, I think that would go a long way.
Hey, let me just say this. History proves that if we show up,
we can't hear you, Vero. Can't hear
history proves that. And the other thing I might say, as Martin Luther King said, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Change takes time, but change will come.
Yep. Don't give up. Mike, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to thank you again for inviting me again. I want everybody to really to go out and vote. I mean, just simply, just vote. I don't care what you know who you vote for, as long as you know you vote your conscience and you vote. This is people have died, you know, to give you the right to vote. So please vote. It's very important. Please vote.
Get involved. Get involved. Yep.
Take somebody with you.
Well, hey, that's all the time that we have, and we certainly thank you for yours. So until next week. Vote. Take somebody with you.
Make it a date.
Read the hard way.
Hey, you see that girl that you always like, and you know, hey, let's go vote.
Yeah, get a voting date. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. Okay. We'll see you guys.
Make it a date. All right, y'all. Thanks, y'all.